Hello and welcome to the show. For this week's FailRace versus the community, we were going racing with B-class cars from the Common Collection tier. The tier system is not really used much past the opening couple of hours of the game, but it's an interesting way to sort cars, so I figured we would, try something a little bit different. Either way, relatively clean start for everybody here at the Road Atlantis short circuit. Unusually at the front, Amaya's Manx and an Isetta were very quickly running away from the field. The cars, very, very light, have got absolutely phenomenal acceleration, both starting towards the front, helped them get to the lead early on. The RX-7 we're following here have done a good job to get up into third place, runs very, very deep into this long corner, is under some threat from the MX-5, a little bit of lag with the replays. The RX-7 is fine. In the end, the MX-5 struggles massively with its straight line speed down this back straight. The RX-7 would get or keep his third position. The Dodge would move up into fourth place as we find our way through the chicane. But yeah, Manx and Isetta were enjoying a fairly decent, peaceful run at the start of this race. Further back, it was anything but peaceful as a whole bunch of cars tried to fit too wide into the final corner. One of the most scary places to try and go too wide around here. Just the tiniest mistake on the outside, you'll end up in a horrible, horrible tyre bundle. This Eagle Talon trying to make up a position. It's again a long way around the outside of Turn 1, and in the end doesn't quite have the speed. In fact, the 131 has got a very good run on the Alpha Spider, but top of the hill is another place that is on the more difficult side to get overtakes done as we then rush down the other side. We're getting a nice close-up of the back of the Spider into this. It's a real interesting corner with these kind of cars. With these B-class cars, they're not likely to be quite flat out through here, but it's only a tiniest amount of braking, certainly unless you've got a crazy powerful car, because the smallest amount of braking to get the car through the turn. Yeah, seeing vehicles run wide there is certainly not uncommon. And Impala has got massive amounts of straight line speed, is able to get past the Alfa Romeo before we come to the chicane. Unfortunately, the poor Alfa would get a stunt from an OX5. It would see him drop down the order. The Manx continues to lead the race for quite some time. The problem with the Manx and with the Isetta is that they can be very quick over the course of the lap, but trying to keep them under control is so very, very difficult. It's so very difficult. You've got to do a lot of work shooting them just to get them even vaguely drivable. In the end, the controllability issues of the Manx would see him in trouble. The RX-7 also with a little bit better straight line speed. Once it's passed, the Manx is going to have a very tough time to do much about that Mazda. But to have held on for the lead for as long as it did was very, very good going. And likewise, in third place, the Isetta was clinging on to position against the big Dodge. I had got a Ford Mustang and was coming under increasing pressure from a Capri. The Capri was the fractionally faster car. Just overall, the Capri was a slightly better car, but I was putting up a rather big fight. Having got to the inside at the final corner, just ran wide on the exit. I'm going to take that opportunity every single time and could get the Mustang back past again. My Ford was very, very good at about two corners. At the top of the hill is where I made, top of the hill and the corner afterwards is where I made all of my lap time up, and the Capri would catch me everywhere else. So it was a interesting fight. The Impala was proving to be quite difficult to get past. The Chevrolet, very, very quick down the straight, as you can imagine, a bit of a handful through the corners, and it was doing a good job of holding up the Abarth. The Fiat not able to find a way past. Spider behind them runs far too deep into the chicane. Very easy thing to do down here. The 131 gets a really good run out of that final chicane, but just can't match the acceleration of the Impala as we head to the final corner. There's not really much space to get that pass done, and in the end, the Abarth thinks better of it, backs out, and will have to try again at another corner. Getting past some of those cars could be rather tricky. The Isetta continued to hold on to third place again for a number of laps. You can see from the replay cameras how difficult it is to keep the car on the road. The Manx was gradually falling back from the leader. Again, these two over the course of a single lap could put in some impressive times, but their lack of controllability would be their undoing, really, as we head down towards chicane. The Manx lack of straight line speed also wasn't helping. The Dodge would finally, after a good number of laps, I think about 3 or 4 laps, the Dodge was following the Isetta, unable to find a way past. The Dodge would finally get the move done, and kind of with that, the Isetta would try maybe a little bit too hard or just run out of grip coming up against some other cars. In the end, both the Manx and the Isetta would end up making mistakes that would see them drop a fair way down the order, but well done to holding on for it for so long. I get a huge slide in the Mustang that was not really what I wanted, having finally got up to that third place. A massive slide, and it costs you all your momentum down this back straight, would see me in a lot of trouble. I had a brief breather from the Capri as he was busy fighting with the CRX. We now go 3 wide into the chicane. Not quite where you want to be going. I actually give the CRX a little bit of a tag. I thought I was clear to get behind him. Not quite, slightly misjudged it. Gets away with it though. Front wheel drive, can just kind of boot it and straighten the car up as we head around the final corner. I have to try and brave it around the outside. Not quite going to work through there. The Honda got a lot more grip than my Mustang. Yeah, couldn't quite hold it, but most importantly didn't bin it in the tyre bundle and still hadn't lost the place to the Capri. At the front, and it would be the RX-7 that would go on to take victory. In terms of lap times, the RX-7, the Coronet, my Mustang, the CRX, Capri were all setting fairly similar lap times. Could have been an incredibly interesting battle if all of us had been put together, but the RX-7 made the best of the getaway, got through the traffic, and was able to stay well out of trouble and still set some very quick lap times to go and go claim a victory. It was an impressive job from the Isetta and the Manx for holding on to top 3 positions for so long, but in the end, just too difficult to drive around here. The closest of finishes, though, would go further back. The 131 and the Spider were fighting on this one. I think it's about 6th place. These cars were fighting over as we head down towards the final chicane. The 131 having to go on the defensive through here. The 124 looking every which way he could, just couldn't quite get alongside. He's running wide out of that penultimate corner across the grass, loses him all of his momentum, and then down towards the final turn is coming under huge pressure from the Eagle Talon. The Fiat does its best to defend. The Eagle would get past, but it would be just after the line. It was a very, very close finish between the pair of them. The Eagle was closing very quickly indeed. However, yeah, just not quite enough. Just not quite enough to get the bar. You can see the Fiat's wheels well over the line. We've seen it before, or we know from previous races that where Forza judges the car to a finish is when the wheels cross the line. Yeah, close, a very, very close finish. Race number 2, we would go to the Homestead circuit, and it was another Isetta with an absolutely blinding start from about 8th place on the grid. The Isetta would get to the first corner first because they are so light, converted to all-wheel drive for this. Their acceleration is utterly ridiculous. So the Isetta would lead the field through these opening corners. I'd have to say, for a track that I think this is the first time perhaps we've run it in versus the community, it was actually a very good start from everybody, and I really quite like this layout of Homestead. I think it's probably one we're going to see a fair bit more of. The car that we are following at the moment, the Falcon, also had a relatively good start, again moving up from the mid-pack as everybody is shuffling their way through these next few corners. This turn here quite had a lot of cars with the oversteer. There's a lot of sliding cars. It's an interesting corner, one that was just about flat out. That it was a just about, with a lot of cars going very, very sideways. The Falcon able to make a position on the Carmen gear that were struggling for straight line speed here. Datsun, we're going to move down on the Mustang. Falcon keen to follow that one through as well, would put the Ford up into a 3rd place. The Isetta continued to lead. The Falcon draws alongside the Datsun as we head down towards this next corner. The outside line through here is a difficult one. This is a very fast corner. There's a lot of vehicles being brave going too wide on the opening lap for a corner that yeah, not everyone was quite so sure of. Again, there was another turn that could be taken flat out if you got everything absolutely perfect. Perhaps not on the on the cold tyres, but yeah, the mixture of corners around this circuit, I really do quite enjoy racing around. Further back, we had a Holden Sandman involved in a big old scrap in these opening laps. Again, much like Road Atlanta, it's going to be busy, it's going to be crowded at the start of the race. My Mustang was having it up the inside, it was 3 wide with a Golf there. BMW is having a look. The Alfa Romeo's asked a bit too much and gone for a trip across the grass. Unfortunately, while I had all of the liveries working for my replay, or for my games in this, my game kept crashing when it came to the end of the race. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, quite frankly. So yeah, these other ones replays I haven't got working liveries. fingers crossed and so on, that we will have them. We should have them going forward in future if my game stops crashing when it ends races. Either way, there was a lot of busyness going on in the mid pack here. The Isetta continues to lead again for a good 3 or 4 laps. The BMW was out in front, and this one looked a little bit less wobbly than the one we had seen at Road Atlanta, but eventually it would run out of grip. You can look at the size of the tyres on the car compared to that the Falcon, and while yes, the BMW is very, very light indeed, it just doesn't quite have the grip through the corners to fight with that Ford. It's certainly not going to be giving up through these next few corners. It runs out a little bit wide on the exit there because the Isetta has got such a huge amount of acceleration. That's where the strengths of the little bubble car come in. He does briefly retake the lead as they go around the outside. It's not a place I would want to be in an Isetta. I don't want to be in that position in a car, let alone try to go around the outside of somebody with the Isetta. They both do very, very well to keep it on the track. I'm not sure. I think the Isetta may have run a wheel across the grass, but yeah, it doesn't have a big off, having tried to go around the outside, one of the fastest points on the circuit. Yeah, definitely well done for having kept all of that together. And Alfa Romeo 75 would move up into 3rd place, and then there would be a very big scrap for 4th. Datsun, Impala, the Fiat is involved. I was one of the Mustangs in the group behind. We were bringing a Holden Sandman as well along to this very big fight. The Impala, probably the quickest car here in terms of straight line speed, but this layout, while there are some straight, acceleration is helpful, most definitely, around this layout. Ultimate top speed, not quite so important, as we're going to have Impala slide, Mustang slide. I think it was my Mustang at this point, going quite sideways in the background there. Yeah, straight line speed, acceleration is helpful here. Ultimate straight line speed is slightly less so. The Datsun had tried to get a move done on the Alfa 75, couldn't quite pull it up in time, ended up running out a little bit wide. That would give kind of opportunities. The Impala was a little bit stuck with nowhere to go until we get onto the back straight, and then can use that power. The Fiat thinks better of trying to make it 3 wide, probably a good idea, as it all gets a little bit bumpy. The Mustang behind goes very, very sideways, and that was not me going sideways off the track. That was the second of the Mustangs, because I was now back up to the tail of this group. It was, yeah, frantic here, with some fairly damn sizable cars as well around this track. Certainly, I mean, the Fiat and the Datsun not particularly big, but the Impala, the Mustangs felt pretty large when you're racing against the likes of the Datsuns. So on, the Impala gets a good run down towards the first corner, but in the end, the Datsun are running out of brakes at that section. I was kind of hanging around this group. Truth be told, this wasn't the best of circuits for the Mustang. My Ford was a little bit more handling based. It didn't really have enough acceleration, basically, around here. So while I could just about keep up with this group of cars, trying to make progress forward was proving a bit difficult. The Abarth was a bit too good around the corners. The Impala was far too good down the straights. The Sandman was very, very evenly matched in terms of speed with me. I mean, I could catch the Impala around these sort of first corners. I could draw alongside, but I could never get an overtake done. Every time we got to an acceleration zone, the Chevrolet would pull away, and I couldn't fight with that. Although I had to be careful as well and not going too aggressive, because the Holden was doing a very good job of sticking with me. Never quite looked like being able to draw alongside and find a way past. This is perhaps one of my better opportunities, but again, I can't sneak it up the inside there. I get a big slide as well, which won't help matters. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of status quo for me, but it was a good fun battles to be a part of in here. There was always cars to be trying to find ways past, and so on. At the front of the race, it was the Ford Falcon that would go on to take a victory here, but it wasn't by as large a margin as you would expect from the Isetta. Yet, that had stuck in second place for pretty much, well, the entirety of the race, having got overtaken, even with a little bit of a cheeky line on this final lap, was, yeah, running very, very good lap time. For a car that we expected to wibble and wobble and fall over and generally be a bit of a silly entrance, it was actually doing remarkably well around here, remarkably competitive in terms of lap time. The Ford would just about take the victory. The BMW in second, Alfa Romeo 75 would claim third. It was, yeah, a lot closer race at the front than anybody ever expected for the bubble car. Our final race, and we would head to the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, with there being a potential chance of rain later on in the race. I had a very much midfield start in this particular one, on the outside through turn 1, which can be a little bit scary, although again, everybody making it through that first corner very, very nicely. It's 2 and 3 wide. At this stage in the race, the Corsa and Fiat get a little bit connected. Just the squeeze through that second corner gets the Fiat sideways. But again, everybody's made it through in one piece. I get the best of all of it, somehow managing to sneak my way up through the field, get my vehicle up into a 4th place as a Pontiac GTO, and I think it's an Eagle Talon are fighting their way through these final corners. I am now stuck trying to go the long way around at the final corner. The Fiat makes up all of the positions on this final turn as I'm desperately trying to get my car to the inside, get my car back onto a helpful line. The Corsa making himself up into 2nd place down this main finish straight. The Pontiac has got tremendous levels of straight line speed, but an absolute handful through the corners. I get very brave with nowhere else to go. We make it 3 wide through the first corner. It's a long way around the outside there as the leader gets very, very sideways. One of the Isettas get into trouble as well on that first corner. I managed to kind of cut back to the inside for the run through the second corner to draw alongside the Corsa. Had to give the Fiat a little bit of a hurry-up bump through that opening corner. It's an absolutely frantic start here. I'm around the outside of the Corsa now to get myself up into that 2nd place and have a very good run actually onto the back of the Fiat, but nowhere to really quite go at the moment. The Holden behind us gets things all wrong into these final corners, just about manages to gather it all back up before clattering the side of the Corsa. Again, everyone getting away with this through the opening laps. I am up into 2nd with a good run. Lots of straight lines, but enough acceleration in the Mustang to out-drag the Fiat down towards the first corner, but you've got to try and find that braking point. Tiny bit too brave from me would see me run wide on the exit of the corner, and that allows the Fiat back past again. There was an Alfa in the background going very sideways on the exit curb at turn 1. An absolutely crazy start to the race here at Brands Hatch. Incredible good fun, though, in the midst of all of this. And it would continue. Brands Hatch Indy is one of those circuits. Sometimes you get absolutely bonkers races with a huge amount going on. This being one of them, as the Alfa 75 trying to make a move on the Spider. Just can't quite get it stopped in time. A couple of lock-ups from the front brakes there. Ends up giving the Spider a little bit of a tap for collisions into turn 1. That's fairly tame from everyone involved. The Spider, though, gets hung out to dry. He's stuck on the outside for turn 2, and that allows a Falcon pass. There's now I think it's a Mugen is up along the outside of that Spider. Thinks better of trying to get past the Alfa 75, having eventually got that pass all completed. Yeah, with Brands Hatch Indy, sometimes you get horrendously bonkers races. That this one was turning out to be one of them. Sometimes you get races with not a lot happening. There can be races where overtaking is a little bit difficult and so on. But with this selection of cars, with the way that things were panning out, yeah, it was on the utterly bonkers end of the spectrum. This BMW was gradually finding his way up through the order, coming up against the Corsa. The Vauxhall was quick through the turns, but really struggled with the lack of acceleration. Was struggling down that main straight. Defended well into turn 1, but is a little bit slow on the exit. The BMW is going to get that car to the inside for the second corner. The Corsa does try to cut back to the inside ever so slightly, misjudging it, giving the BMW a little bit of a tap. There's some sideways stuff from the 3 Series, but manages to recover it and will then defend his way through the 3rd corner, and nothing that the Vauxhall can do. I think in the background, the Pontiac and Carmen Gear were going for a little bit of exploration across the across the grass, but yeah, it was fast and frantic stuff. At the front, we were changing positions pretty much every lap. 3rd place was regularly changing hands as well. The Holden was desperately trying to cling on to the position. He was coming up against a CRX. There was a 131 at Bath involved. Alfa 75 was coming to catch this group. The Falcon wasn't that far behind either. 3 wide again into the second corner. The lightning clouds were starting to form up above. It got very, very dark. The replay cameras don't actually quite do it justice, just how horrendously dark it got in this race. There seems to be a little bit more light with the replay cameras. Certainly from cockpit view, it was getting, yeah, almost night levels of darkness towards the later stages of this race. The Fiat sliding, the Sandman sliding, the CRX is looking to try and make it 3 or 4 wide. The Alfa Romeo is going to make up 3 places in 1 corner if he doesn't clatter the side of the Ute. Again, everybody's getting away with far too many cars into far too small space of tarmac. I mean, this was good news for us at the front because we were fighting like this, but we weren't being caught because third place was fighting like this. The Falcon had caught up to this group. The Sandman's on two wheels across the curb at turn one, ends up in the side of the Abarth and ends up out wide. But again, everybody's just about getting 4 cars. They might have even tried to be getting 5 cars into that second corner. Unfortunately, it all ended in disaster for the Abarth and the Sandman. I think the Abarth got a little bit of trouble across a curb, and the front of the car getting caught to the sort of rear corner of the Sandman would see the pair of them taking a trip across the grass. It was when you see a group of cars fighting like that, 4 and 5 wide, you know eventually something is going to go wrong in all of that. They did well for it to only be a relatively minor off and to have stayed that many wide for as long as they had. Now, as I said, at the front, we were changing positions almost every lap as to who was leading. Our cars very, very evenly matched. I think the Mustang perhaps a little teensy bit faster overall. Certainly the acceleration of the Mustang made it a bit easier for me to find a way past the Fiat, but the Fiat perhaps a little bit more stable through the corners. The Mustang quite prone to getting some oversteer moments, but the additional power of the Ford was nice when you come out of that final corner. We can use the acceleration of the Mustang to find ourselves back past, but you've got to be very careful. Turn 1 here is a notoriously nasty corner, and we'd seen so many times from both of us doing cutbacks on one another, and again, I'm running out wide. I've got to try and get the car back across, and indeed we do. But then the rain started to fall, which is not particularly what I wanted in the slidey Ford. That's not the weather conditions that we really wanted to see. In the dry, despite us fighting and swapping positions regularly in the Alfa Romeo of going up to third, we were maintaining the gap back to that third place relatively well. When the rain came, it was really bloody heavy rain, and within a couple of laps, the track had gone to being incredibly, incredibly soggy, and that meant everybody was now having a lot of difficulties slowing cars down into the first corner. Alpha Spider, the Impala, was off up ahead. There was another car, I think CRX had gone off. I very nearly binned it in the gravel at turn 1. Certainly being the lead of the race at this time, I was kind of the experimenting one with the brakes. You were never quite sure. Having got used to the track in one conditions, you were never quite sure what you were going to have in these closing few laps, which was, yeah, just ranked up that tension a little bit more. And the problem for us at the front is that while our cars had been very quick in the dry, once it started raining, the Alfa Romeo was flying. It got past the Fiat with very little in the way of issues. I knew I was in trouble. We only had a couple of laps to go, so it was all out defending for my Mustang to try and find a way to keep that Alfa Romeo behind, because it was as quick as my car in a straight line and better through the corners. It was just a lot more planted through these turns, so it was, yeah, do everything I can to defend. I couldn't afford to even slightly get a braking zone wrong, because the Alfa Romeo would do a cutback, would find a way past, continued to position the Mustang absolutely in the way of the Alfa Romeo. Essentially, in the end, I just couldn't carry the speed. In the end, I just couldn't carry the corner's speed. I sort of slide up the track, push the Alfa a little bit wide, and he's got so much more grip, even out on the AstroTurf. He's able to get the power down in that 75 to get the pass done. And in all of that fighting, a tiny little bit of a gap back to the Fiat had allowed the 124 to join back into the fun. He slides up the inside into the final corner. I'm on a slightly wonky line through all of that, somehow managing to keep everything together. Yeah, we just didn't have the pace. We couldn't fight with the 75 once the going got wet. Another car that was absolutely flying once the rain started to fall, the BMW, that was picking up positions, having made about 3-4 places as cars fell off at turn 1. The Compact was then having a go at the back of the Falcon up towards turn 2. The Falcon having a look at the CRX. The Honda really struggling in the poor conditions. The Falcon couldn't get stopped. The BMW goes round the outside of the Honda, up the inside of the Falcon, escaping the circuit. Is a fantastic piece of driving from the BMW to get 2 places in one corner and all of that. To go through the middle at turn 2 in, well, rapidly changing and often horrible conditions. Yeah, that's a hell of a pass to have managed to pull off, but would run out of laps to catch the 200SX up ahead. For me, we continued to fight to the very last against that Fiat. The 75 was gone and just too quick for us to deal with in the wet. We ran into the final corners. I'm sliding, the Fiat sliding. We bumped doors on the way into the final turn. I let the Fiat through, knowing that I want to cut back to the inside. There is just a Mustang's width with a little bit of assistance to get the Ford alongside. It's the drag race now down towards the finish line, and this is where the Ford had been good all day. The Alfa Romeo would take victory. The Ford would just get second place from the Abarth. It was a crazy end to what had been a truly spectacular race. As I said, I don't think we stayed in the same order for more than about a lap at a time between me and the Fiat. The rain put paid to our chances of winning. The Alfa Romeo was just so much faster than we were when the going got wet. As far as the finish between us two goes, yeah, it's close. Even closer than the Fiat's finish with the Eagle Talon at Road Atlanta. Again, it's when the front wheels cross the finish line. The Mustang's wheels pretty much on the line. The Abarth a little bit further back. I'm not actually quite sure what the finish line the game counts, but my Mustang is out-accelerating the Fiat, so if it's ahead at this line, it's going to be ahead at the other ones, basically. Yeah, it was ridiculous finish. A great fun battle for what would end up being second place. We weren't the only close finish in all of this either. Further back, when the rain started to fall, the Sandman and the Impala really did start to struggle, as you can imagine, around this circuit as they gradually dropped down the order. The Alfa Spider was catching massively as the two giant cars fought their way through the final corner. Gets the best drive of the lot of them down towards the start-finish line, but doesn't have the power. The Impala will get the position. The Alfa can't quite get past the Sandman as they run across the line. Yeah, of the Brands Hatch Indy races that we have done, this has definitely been one of the most entertaining. It was absolutely ridiculous. The first few laps, it was 2 and 3 wide, just about every single corner, and only a couple of cars finding their way off the circuit, so yeah, some really very good driving with these cars. Had a lot of fun. My Mustang was good at Brands Hatch. It was kind of a midfield car at the other circuits. It wasn't quite going to be setting fastest lap, but it was competitive enough to be stuck in a lot of battles, which is, yeah, what you want. Exciting racing. I'd rather be stuck in all the battles than driving around at the front on my own. That, though, is going to be it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one will be held on Thursday, the 30th of November. We're going to go racing with A-Class front-wheel drive cars. If you want to sign up and take part in that, you can via our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace Versus the Community section, and you can sign up in there. However, that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.